okay. Equity's gone. Insured deposits being paid, $250. Your money will be good Monday morning, no problem. And all you other depositors, you $140 billion of depositors, you're wiped out. They didn't say we're freezing your accounts or we'll get, they said you're gone. And they gave them a receivership certificate because the company was technically put into receivership. You got a receivership certificate. What was it worth? No idea. When will I get cash? We're working on it. We'll sell the assets and we'll pay you as and when we get proceeds. We'll pay you. But we don't know when. And RTC in 1990, same kind of deal, took 2 years. I thought they did a good job. I was doing deals with the RTC. We were sitting on boxes because their furniture hadn't arrived yet. But they were wheeling and dealing and trying to get the stuff out the door. Well, all the billionaire crybabies spent the weekend banging on the White House door saying, you can't do this. This is entrepreneurs all over Silicon Valley. This is their startup capital. They can't meet payroll. They can't pay the rent. You're going to shut down technology, et cetera, et cetera. You can't do this, basically. So the first announcement was 6 o'clock Friday. At 6 p.m. on Sunday, the 12th, the FDIC and the Fed came out with a statement and said, just kidding. All the deposits are good. Unlimited amounts. I knew a guy was moving $8 billion out of it. He told me, we put the wire instructions on Thursday, but from Thursday to Sunday, we didn't know where the money was. Nobody did. But it came through. One of the crypto exchanges had $3 billion. And I think the Circle, the one that backs one of the stable coins, they had $3 billion. But they had Cisco, Roku, Etsy. They had a ton of big names in there. And then the whole startup thing was a bit of a fraud because, first of all, most startups fail anyway, so you were just kind of accelerating the timeline. But it was a climate bank, and that's why the White House caved, because these were not new apps or cryptocurrencies or things that maybe make life a little bit simpler. It was all climate change. They were working on battery technology, wind turbines, battery chemistry, carbon capture, et cetera. There is no climate crisis. That's made up we're on a separate agenda of world control. But that's who was in it. Of course, if you're at the White House, the green news scam is your number one priority. So that's why they got bailed out. So they just took the bail-in thing and tore it up, threw it away, insured all the depositors. They did more than that. The Fed created a facility. They would take every underwater bond in the country, if you're a member bank, and give you par. So if your bond's worth 80, they'll give you 100. I wouldn't mind getting in on that deal, for 1 year at low interest, and I'm sure they'll extend it when the year's up. So that's kind of the world we're living in today, and then people don't know about if their deposits are insured or not. It depends if your bank's systemically important, according to Janet Yellen, and that's undefined. Some of them do. The less intelligent ones do. The John Kerrys and the Al Gores and then you got some true believers. Gillian Tett, knocked heads with her a few times at the Financial Times. But some of them do. But the vast majority of Americans, and I would say people, in Western Europe, maybe even more so, who buy into this, you ask them a simple question, like, hey, what percentage of the atmosphere is CO2? I have no idea. Do you know that CO2, the main reason it's around is plant food? If you get rid of CO2, all the plants will die and we'll start it. No, I didn't think of that. It's poison, really. I just exhaled some CO2. Sorry, I didn't mean to poison the room. I mean, these people don't know anything about chemistry. They don't know anything about physics. They don't know anything about climate. I mean, I am a complexity theorist. My ability to kind of understand capital markets is based on applying complexity theory from over here in the physics world, bringing it to capital markets. They are complex dynamic systems, non-Perel, and it works beautifully. But probably the most complex system you can think of is the climate, is climatology. Mm-hmm. And so there's kind of a reign of terror going on in that world where, this guy at Penn State, his big thing is just to sue you if you mention his name. But
let's not mention his name. We're not as rich as you, remember, Jim.
Well, he's backed by the state of Pennsylvania. So,
but we're not, Jim.
Exactly.
But my point is, they will. So you're an up and coming climate researcher or physicist, or whatever. You will not get tenure. You will not get published. You will not get research grants if you deviate in any way from the narrative, which is that CO2 is poison, methane is poison. There's If global temperatures go up, whatever, what is it, 1.5 centigrade before a certain time, the oceans are going to rise, New York City subways will be flooded. None of that is true. There is no evidence that shows conclusively that CO2 has anything to do with global warming, number one. You can speculate on it. It is a greenhouse gas. It does trap heat, but the system is so complex that other factors come into play that tend to reverse, have recursive functions and tend to reverse whatever it was that started it. The causes of climate change are actually very well known. Sun cycles, volcanoes, ocean currents, the location of the jet stream. There are a set of factors, La Nina, El Nino, that oceanic subduction, where cold, warm, saltier water from the Gulf Stream gets up near Iceland, and it goes under the fresh water, but sometimes it doesn't, and then that'll make it warmer there and cause the jet stream to dip and be colder in Europe, etc. The medieval warm period from around about the 10th century to the 12th century, they were growing grapes in Greenland. I mean, they had farms, they had colonies, and then today they're all under ice. The little ice age, which wasn't a true ice age, but it was an intense period of global cooling, the Thames was frozen. They didn't need the bridges. You could walk across the Thames on ice, and they had what they call frost fairs in early 17th century London, where the merchants would set up their booths on the Thames, and people would go out ice skating, and you could go shopping. That's how cold it was, and that lasted for several hundred years. So of course the climate changes, and say, you're a climate denier. I'm not a climate denier. Climate change all the time. I just deny bad science. I deny your hoax. I deny your lies.
What we all are supposed to believe.
I have not expressed an opinion. Everything I said is based on science. I can be happy to, deluge you with the peer-reviewed papers. What's interesting is that the true experts, I'm talking about Princeton physicists, University of Colorado, by the way, they're one of the top research universities in this field. The guys and women, mostly guys, who are retired, who aren't worried about all the things, they're writing papers that completely refute the climate change narrative. I should call it the global warming CO2 narrative, because anyone who knows anything knows that climate's changed. I lived 10 years. When going back to what you said a couple minutes ago, Constantine, where whether there were winners or losers, et cetera, and of course there were, we're all better off. That's true on average. Averages hide more than they reveal. Mm-hmm. You have to get behind the average and look at the degree distribution. Mm-hmm. So the old joke, I hate to use cliches, but I'll use one now, 20 guys are in a bar and Bill Gates walks in, and on average, everyone's a billionaire.
Right.
Well, you're actually the same guy you were before he walked in the bar. So you can't, you can do whatever you want, but to me, it's not meaningful to talk about higher average income, higher per capita income without looking at the degree distribution, the Gini coefficient, the income inequality. That's where it matters.